Something that's gotten a lot of traction over the last 6 weeks is the government shutdown. Of course, last week, as you know, Nancy Pelosi said, look, I'm not negotiating with Donald Trump until he opens the government. Last Friday, he reopened the government. Now, the signals are, and Nancy Pelosi very clear yesterday, she said there's no wall money in the deal. And yesterday, the president had heard these comments, and he said this in the Oval Office.
I don't think they're going to make a deal. I see what's happening. They're all saying, oh, let's do this, but we're not giving one dime for the wall. That's okay. But if they're not going to give money for the wall, it's not going to work. And if it's not going to work, then the politicians are really wasting a lot of time. We're allowing people to come into this country and sell drugs and human traffic and do all of these horrible things that if we had the simplicity of a well-constructed, beautiful barrier or wall, they wouldn't be able to come into our country.
And Geraldo, you have said on this program, give the president the money for his wall.
Well, I think that not to give the president, just on principle, just digging your heels in and saying you're not getting a dime to replace, to repair, or God forbid to expand the over 600 miles of fencing and barrier and wall that already exists is pure spite on Nancy Pelosi's part. And I think the president is probably right. She's digging in her heels, not saying a single dollar for a wall, giving the president really no chance. There's not a negotiation. In other words, in a negotiation, you sit, you have a compromise, it's painful. Okay, I'll give you 50 miles of wall if you give me the amnesty for the Dreamers and a ticket to citizen. You know, you make a negotiation. It's difficult on both sides because you have to give up something you don't want to. But it just seems to me that she is dooming any potential negotiations right from the get-go, making much more likely that in mid-February the president will declare a national emergency because he's hell-bent on getting a barrier, getting a wall, getting some more of the division between our neighbors to the south, you know, in physical form.
Why do you think he tweeted out? He said, let's just call this them walls from now on and stop playing political games. A wall is a wall. So remember he said at first, okay, we'll call it a barrier, whatever you want to call it. Now he's saying no.
And then he was going to put solar panels on top of it and, you know, cool drinks with umbrellas and all the rest of it. I think that what the president has discovered, much to his chagrin, instantly I think that Governor Christie was right that the president went into the first shutdown without a clear idea of how he was going to get out of the back end of it. And now it's even worse because now Nancy Pelosi is telegraphing out front that no matter how these negotiations go, not a dime for the wall, no matter what. So I believe that what's happened is he sees he's not going to win in a negotiation, so he's going to go ahead. I think that's a signal, a clear signal, Ainsley, as I said, that the president will declare a national emergency, use money from the Department of Defense or some other federal agency, Homeland Security, wherever the money exists, maybe FEMA, to start construction. I think in a way it's a face saving for the president. He must get some new wall out of it. Just as it is face-saving for Nancy Pelosi, she cannot allow a single foot of wall to be constructed. This is a sorry way to run a government.
Yeah, and Geraldo, as that political debate plays out, what's actually happening at our southern border, you look at what happened in Arizona, Border Patrol, just the last 24 hours or so, confiscating enough fentanyl to kill 57 million people in this country. How can Democrats continue to say this is a manufactured crisis when something like that factually happens at the border?
Well, they would say, you know, I know Nogales very well. I'm a U of A grad. We used to go to Nogales, Mexico every Friday night. Now, no more. Now there's a lot more trepidation, a lot fewer social calls, casual calls across the border. The Democrats would argue that the fentanyl came in a produce truck, as most drugs do, you know, through a port of entry, and that the wall would not have stopped it. And to that, I reply, let's take Nancy Pelosi at her word. Let's enormously enhance the ports of entry. Well, I would make a humanitarian argument, a democratic argument for a wall. You hear the stories of these children dying in the desert trying to get across desperate because they can't get through ports of entry, where they found 4,000 bodies over the last year, people trying to make it across. I once tried, I made it with a group of undocumented migrants. We walked 45 miles. Many of them were at the end of their line by the time we made it across. Yes, Anthony.
Yep. Well, the president has suggested he wants to beef up the ports and do something about a wall as well. So let's see what happens. But right now, it looks like the president is not going to get what he wants. Geraldo, always a pleasure. Thank you very much for joining us.
Have a good weekend.
Thank you.